Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. It is July 18th, 2021, and our discussion topic for today is free your mind and the rest will follow. And I'm going to begin with an opening thought for the day and prayer written by Ernest Holmes in the book 365, and it's entitled, I Am Warmed by the Love of God. And the quote is from John, 1 John, or 1 John 3:1. Behold, what manner of love the Father hath bestowed upon us, that we should be called the sons of God. And end of quote there. And so Ernest says it's been truly said that love is the lodestone of life, the treasure of earth, and the highest gift of heaven. We all wish to feel what we are kept in the, we all wish to feel that we are kept in the arms of love, protected by its shelter, and warmed by its feeling. But someone might ask, how do we really know that the universe rests on the shoulders of love? That's a quote, rests on the shoulders of love. The answer is simpler than it might appear. For instance, no one is ever harmed by love. The more love there is in our life, the better off we are. Uh, while the opposite to love, which is hate or dislike, can and actually consume us mentally and destroy our health physically. If then love builds up while its opposite destroys, we may be certain that there is a universal reality to it, that we actually are immersed in an infinite love as well as a divine wisdom. And we must learn to feel the presence of this love and rely on it. Therefore, let us say daily, and I invite you to say this on your own with me, I am one with the love of God. I am one in the love of God with all people. My love goes out to everyone, and I know that it is returned from everyone. Overlooking everything that might seem to deny this divine beneficence, I trust that infinite love will guide and protect me in everything. And I counsel my own soul to show forth this love in such a manner that it shall embrace and warm the heart of humanity, bringing confidence and trust and faith and hope to everyone it touches. Daily, I affirm that love governs all of humanity into pathways of peace and joy. Daily, I affirm that love goes before and makes the way plain and happy. And today, I affirm that my own love is renewed and rekindled by that great and vast love in which I am immersed. That love is God. And so it is. So that was a beautiful and comforting prayer for me this morning. Um, Bob and I were talking about yesterday this theme, free your mind and the rest will follow, and how that works and what it means. And so I had an interesting life lesson. I love it when life does this and gives me an actual experience that I know a lot of people have, in which you question all of that, you know. So yesterday we had the wonderful opportunity to have lunch with old friends of my son and um, his mother, who happened to have been back in college when I was in the early 80s. She, like me, was returning to college to go into a different career. And so we had that in common, but we sort of went different paths after getting a psychology degree. She went to a different university for her graduate degree, and we kind of lost touch. But she was asking me some questions about professors and the people at the time and things that had happened. And that was a lot of years ago. Early 80s. That was 50 years ago. So it was really interesting. No, 40 years ago. It was really interesting to see what my memories dragged up. And my dreams helped me a lot, woke me up at 4:30 this morning, wouldn't let me back to sleep so that I could examine every choice I've ever made in my adult life and whether it was right or wrong.
Good
And
move.
what
Good
made
move.
me do it? What was I thinking anyway? And it was really painful. And I was so glad when Bob woke up and we could discuss it, because it's so easy with hindsight. What do they call that, quarterbacking?
Yeah.
The next day they call it the next Monday quarterbacking, I think they
Right.
call it, because you can look at the game and what went wrong and what you should have done and what the players should have done. So that's very easy to do with your own life when you look back and say,
The saddest thing is that you're the only person I've ever met that's done that.
ever does
Yeah,
that.
that's right. No, everyone else is just living their life full out, feeling good about themselves and everything they've ever done.
Every choice they've ever made.
Yeah, what came to me when Judith was sharing this with me is that the unspoken criteria for judgment, and we have an unspoken criteria for judgment, all of us do, that we're using often is not only outdated and impractical and doesn't apply, it totally misses the point of life. And so the criteria is I should have been kinder, I should have been nicer, I should have been more thoughtful, I should have been more considerate. What was wrong with me? And what we're not looking at is the experience that one is actually having in that life that is the best that they can do given what they know and what they believe. But I want to
And given their stressors.
but I want to look at it from a slightly different perspective. I happened to be on the internet this morning, and I was looking at the Olympics are going to be being played pretty soon. And the Olympics are an interesting thing because the Olympics are they're games. They're just games. And I thought, well, life is just a game. And it's not about winning, it's about participating. It's about the ability to participate and engage in a way that allows you to experience your whole being. And so when I looked at that, I thought this is interesting because if you ask the people that are sponsoring the Olympians, what's the job? Well, the job is to win. The job is to get a gold medal. The job is to be number one. And they'll only be number one no matter how many people there are competing. If you ask the Olympian, what's it like? What's valuable for you? They would say, when I'm in that zone, when I'm in that experience, I'm experiencing my whole being. I'm experiencing life in a way that I can't imagine any other way. And so that experience of fully being in the moment is really what it's about. It's not about the winning, although the game has a winner and quote a loser. That's really a retrospective, but that's a looking back at another set of goals. I think one of the problems that we're having very often is that we're evaluating our life with a different set of rules and goals than we had when we were living it. And so I know for myself, always having spent my entire career was what I called a service career, that is in service to humanity at one level or another. But whenever I have actually had those critical 430 moments, it's always, well, you could have made a lot more money and you should have a lot more given what you've done by now. Well, what does that have to do? Well, it's an interesting criteria to judge whether you have a lot or don't have a lot now, when that was never the objective. That was never the goal. Another way of looking at this, and you've heard this before because I've said it before, but I want to go over it again anyway because it's really important, is I really do believe life is a safari that you signed up for. And the thing about a safari is you're dropped into the middle of a jungle and you know it's a jungle and you said yes to it. You're not surprised when animals jump out from behind bushes and threaten you. That's part of being on a safari. We didn't sign up to watch it from a distance. We signed up to be in the middle of it. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to make some wrong moves. It doesn't mean that we're not going to run when we should stand still. It doesn't mean we shouldn't stand still when we should run. And I think the difficulty with that is it's so easy, as you said, to be a Monday night quarterback. And that's not very helpful. Not only that, but it misses the whole point of living is about living. It's not about a level of accomplishment.
Right. And these things, we go through life, everybody, everybody has some pain, everybody has some loss, everybody has some mistakes. They might label a mistake
Well, not many.
that they made. And one of the things I truly know and believe is that we're all doing the best we can given what we know and believe, and I sometimes add or addicted to. And yet we're harder on ourselves than anybody else. And so it's easy to live in, did I make a mistake here? Did I make a mistake? Was I should have known better? Um, and all of those things which don't give you any credit for living a life where you do pay attention to inner guidance. You pay attention to your heart. What is your heart calling you to do? And I was so pleased this morning. I happened to turn on NPR and listen to a professor from Columbia. His name is Brian Greene, and he's written a book, Until the End of Time.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And he says now it's finally becoming. He's, by the way, is professor of physics and math, but he says it's finally becoming okay to use the word consciousness in scientific circles, because we are coming to understand that all that we know about the brain from scans and what we know about DNA and blood chemistry, none of it can explain the depth of feelings that we have as a human experience, and how we cause it and how we get out of it. And that it's time for us to study this thing called consciousness, which is our experience of life from having a brain and having a body. But it brings me to a couple of quotes that I want to share with you. Um, the first one is from Ernest Holmes in Thoughts Are Things. And he says, as you learn to release all your burdens to the right action of God, you'll find that everything falls into its proper place. You will let your problems slip away from you, realizing that a power greater than you are and a presence that is within you is ready, willing, and able to guide you in all ways. Then peace, security, and fulfillment come with ease, and there's a sense of joy and accomplishment. Well, but what is guidance except knowing what's in your heart and what you're feeling called to do, or be, or go, or any of those things? And so that can sometimes give us a very zigzag path. In other words, I don't know anybody who starts a path and it's a totally uphill path to success and happiness. This is a safari. We have things jump out from bushes and surprise us, and we end up going backwards the other way, or what appears to be backwards. And what I was able to do, thank God, this morning after discussing it with Bob, because I know we all do this sometimes, is, and that's the way it's supposed to be. The zigzag is the way it's supposed to be, especially if you are living a life with guidance, with being guided from spirit. You will follow your heart.
I was thinking about the guidance part. Yesterday, I was guided several different times to buy a lottery ticket. I haven't bought one in months.
Long time, yeah.
So I bought a lottery ticket. And then I thought about what I would do with that $150 million. And we talked a little bit about that and talked about abundance and having things and not having things. And the whole conversation ensued that probably wouldn't have ensued had I not bought a lottery ticket. Well, I looked at the numbers this morning and it was really interesting. I didn't manage to get even one number of all of the numbers correct. And then I asked myself, so why did I get a lottery ticket? This is foolish. This is stupid. Waste of a dollar. And what I heard was, how is it a waste for you to consider abundance? How is it a waste for you to not know that this is a game that you said yes to play? And are you only going to play if you're going to win? Or are you going to play because what you learn while you're playing is how you win? And I thought, yeah, that's so true. That was really a very valuable experience, buying that ticket and not winning, because you get to win in another way. How many things have I not considered for my good because I have thought of my life being smaller than it actually needs to be? To what extent have I limited myself by believing I'm not a winner until I have all the numbers? How many times have we limited ourselves because you said, no, I don't have enough to do that? What if you did? What if you imagine? Ernest Holmes has said in a variety of different ways, what would you do that you're not doing now if you knew you couldn't fail?
Mm-hmm.
And often what we're doing is we're failing unconsciously ahead of the failure, the possibility of a failure. We want so much not to fail that we keep the failures beneath the surface so we don't even have to see them. And the failure to move forward because of limitations that are self-imposed is a real tragedy.
So there is this process, and it comes from Buddhism, about being in the present moment and mindfulness, which none of us can do all the time. But the whole idea, I'm finally understanding what the whole point is. The point is, you can spend your life analyzing your past and what you should have done better, and then being fearful of the future and what it might bring. Or like Thich Nhat Hanh does with mindful walking. Thich Nhat Hanh is a Buddhist monk who has a place called Plum Village in France.
Who walks a lot.
But he walked through Vietnam during the war and saw all kinds of, experienced all kinds of atrocities. And people come to his place with the worst kinds of trauma. And he just says, look, just walk with me, just walk in silence, staying in the present moment. And he gets out and they walk with these huge crowds, walk silently and mindfully. And the whole point is being in the present moment. Because when you're in the present moment, feeling the ground on your feet, noticing the sky, the temperature, just being really here right now, you can't be doing all that past stuff and future worrying stuff. You have to bring yourself back to this present moment and just be here. And they have the most amazing healings from people. They might be doing that a couple of years, but they heal because their minds quit raking over the past and beating themselves up or re-experiencing traumas that have happened to them, uh, or fearing the future. People go with great anxieties about the future, and he just brings them back to this present moment. And he doesn't try to get them to talk about their traumas or dramas, doesn't try to heal them. He just says, be mindful.
Nobody questions whether Einstein was useful or valuable. Nobody questions the benefits of his science, but he wasn't a very good father, and he was even less of a husband. Nobody questions whether Ernest Hemingway was a good writer, or how he set the path or opened the path to writing in a way that up until he wrote his books hadn't really been experienced. This was not a happy man who did not live a happy life and did not do well by his relationships. So what I see when
and they ended up committing suicide.
Nietzsche, who was an interesting philosopher who contributed quite a bit to new thought, whether people realize it or not, was also addicted to drugs and had all kinds of interpersonal difficulties and liked best living as a hermit. And I'm bringing this up because it's easy to look at a person and see the good, and it's just as easy to see the bad. What I find disturbing is when we look at ourselves, no matter how much good there is, we often allow ourselves to have what we perceive as our bad outweigh it, or interfere with it, or dominate it to the point where we feel such shame or such guilt that we can't move forward.
Really? Yeah. So a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh that just encapsulates what I was talking about. He says, the energy of mindfulness is the energy of being present, body and mind united. When you practice mindful breathing and mindful walking, you become free of the past, free of the future, free of your projects, and you become totally alive and present again. So that's what we're talking about. And that's what we're talking about with the title of the talk today, which is clear your mind, free your mind, and the rest will follow.
I want to go back to the Ernest Holmes quote, because I think I'd like to walk us through some of it a little more clearly, because I think we can make an assumption when Ernest says, as you learn to release all your burdens to the right action of God. I think very often we hear that and we don't get what that means, to release them. And to release them does not mean that you close your eyes and say, I've released this. You can say that, But to release it is to have a different perspective, is to consider looking at the world in a way that you haven't looked at it before, where what you have done and what you have been about doesn't have a judgment connected to it.
All right.
And I think the
Means to
problem,
look at it without
yeah,
judgment.
so what we say is, I have been a bad person, but I've released that idea. Well, actually, you have to get to the point where I haven't been a bad person. I haven't even been a good person. I've just been a person. I've been the best person I could possibly be. When you release the idea of judgment to that, it's an easier step to take. The right action of God, assuming that there is a power for good in the universe that operates in and through you for good, and that you can work with it and it works with you, is a huge assumption. But assuming that opens the door to also everything you have in your belief system that's contrary to it, that you can say, that's really not true. You will find everything falls into proper place. When things fall into proper place, but very often, if you've noticed it, they don't seem to, they don't feel like they have. That is, for a while, things do not seem in the proper place. I know when I get a new car, I love how it feels and how tight it is and how it drives, but things are not in their proper place. And they're not in their proper place because they aren't where I'm used to them being.
Mm.
And it takes
Mm.
a while to get accustomed to what this particular vehicle has to offer and how it operates to be able to operate it smoothly. Some of us are operating with an old vehicle, and we're trying to operate with the technology of new thought. We have to release that and say, maybe I need to learn some new things. Ready and willing and able to guide you in all ways. I think often we're not as willing as we say we are. I'm reminded of the monkey holding on to a banana through the cage. And what he has to be willing to do is to let go of the banana to be able to get his hand back. He can't get the banana through the cage. But when you've got something that close to you, you just think if you stand there long enough and pull hard enough, you'll get it. There needs to be another way. Sometimes we have to let go of the thing that we want to have close to us so that it can come back to us in a way that works for us as well.
So let's close with a prayer.
Okay.
It's time.
Yeah.
So let's go within and know the truth of our being, which is that we are always connected with and can call upon and feel the presence of the divine. It is always there for us. It is always loving us. And we need never feel that we make all our decisions alone and that we are in judgment because of our decisions. So we know that we clear our mind of any judgment of the past. We allow for possibilities in our future, and we give thanks that we are loved and we are loving, for that is the truth of God, and that is the truth of ourselves.
And so it is.
And so it is.
So before we close, we're going to play a piece of music. And for those of you that are over 50 years old, you may appreciate this more than those who are younger, but I think the content of the song is really what I wanted to focus on today. It's a beautiful expression of what I'd like us all to end with. And the song is "Baby, the Rain Must Fall." And it's from a Steve McQueen. It was used in a Steve McQueen movie, which we watched yesterday, in fact. And really quite an exquisite piece of work.
I'm going to stop the recording
Yeah.
now, okay?